Welcome, everybody. Sean, did you want to do the intros?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Sean Rogers here at Zyxel. Today, we are bringing you Karl Palachuk to talk about taking your business from a break-fix model, making it over to a managed service provider business. As we go through today, Karl's going to start things off. There will be a section here in the middle where I'll talk a little bit about our cloud managed networking solution to help you make that jump to being an MSP. And we've also got Brenton from Digital Bay, who is the owner and general manager of a small business that made the jump to an MSP a few years ago. He'll be here to tell you a little bit about his story, and I believe he'll be sticking around at the end to answer any questions you may have. As we go through today, please use the question and answer interface in Zoom to send in any questions you may have. And with that, I think, Karl, I'm ready for you to take it away. Very
good. Thank you for having me. I'm always grateful to do these things for Zyxel. I'm a user, I will say. So just a little bit of note there. So today we're going to talk to three different audiences: seasoned professionals who want to pick up a few golden nuggets, people who are completely new to IT consulting, and managed service providers who may have thought about, tried to, and haven't quite finished their path to managed services. So with that in mind, my name is Karl Palachuk. I'm the author of several books, including Managed Services in a Month. And I've been trying to do community building in this industry for 20 years. And so I'm be very happy to connect with all of you on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the places. So go ahead and connect to me if you're interested. So today we're going to, as Sean said, we're going to start out with the managed service presentation, and then Brenton and Sean are going to talk about, kind of how Brenton made the move to managed services, and it's actually kind of a cool story. So, and it's something I think a lot of people will relate to. There will be some giveaways here. So if you stay for, the next 20, 25 minutes, you'll be entered into the drawing for some Amazon gift cards. And I believe everyone will be getting a copy of Managed Services in a Month. So please make sure that you keep an eye out for that. So we're going to talk about kind of where we're going, what the big goal is, and why managed services make so much sense. From, the last 10 years, I've heard people ask the question, is it too late to get into managed services? And I assure you, it is not. And we're going to talk almost immediately at the beginning of the presentation on why it is not too late and will never be too late. Then we're going to talk about preventive maintenance and the kind of the key piece of that, and obviously getting the right tools to make sure that you're as successful as possible, and then some Q&A. So these are the three audiences that we talked about. And, part of what I want you to be open to is admitting that some of the things that you've tried are not working as well as you had hoped they would be. And it may be that you were overpromised, or it may be that you just need to tweak things. And I encourage everybody to always think about this in terms of, how do I adapt this for my business? Because whether it's me or anybody else, the people who are presenting knowledge to you don't live in your city. They don't have your employees. They don't have your clients. They don't have your offering. They don't have your solution stack. They don't have your pricing model, right? So you have to just take the information and tweak it and fine tune it and make it work within your business. So I define managed services as maintenance focused. And this is key. And this is one of the things that a lot of people miss, is that you have to be focused on maintenance, because too many people look at it and say, well, I want the client to have only one bill. And that's good. That's a great goal. But it's not realistic in the real world. You want to minimize the number of invoices that you have to send the client, but to be able to say, well, I want to cover absolutely everything, you have no idea what that means. There's no limit to, sort of like shorting a stock. There's no limit to how much money you can lose. So it's maintenance focused. It's delivered under a service agreement. It provides a very specific rate for the client so that they can predict what their spend is going to be. And it guarantees you a minimum income. And that's huge. A lot of people don't realize like how important that is. Now, this doesn't mean flat fee. So flat fee is very commonly the way that this gets discussed, and it might be the way that you deliver services, but it doesn't have to be. Managed services can be that, X amount is covered and Y amount is extra. And every month there's going to be a little bit of difference. You have to figure out what works and makes the most sense with your business and your offering and your clients. So we're going to talk about what is managed services for just a minute, because I want to make sure that we all agree on what that term means. Some of you got started because you think of yourself as a computer consultant or an IT service provider, and that's cool. And that makes sense, especially if you go out in the world and you start a job, and what you know is you're going to go fix computers, so you think of yourself as a computer consultant. The term managed services doesn't really mean anything in isolation, right? And so when you think about managed services, what it means is that you are going to take ownership of your client's site. And that's why it is so fundamentally different from break fix. Break fix, literally the name comes from you wait till something breaks and then you go fix it. And so you might think about your car. You might go get your smog check at one location, go get your brakes fixed at a different location, and then you're going to go get an oil change at another location. And you don't have to have a relationship with any of those companies. And so the next time you need a smog check, you just go to the closest one, or you go to a different one, or you might go to the place that does your oil change. And then the next time you go somewhere else. And so there's no real long-term commitment by either one of you in that relationship. But with computers, a lot of this industry evolved when computers were a side part of the business. Today, that is no longer the case. Today, if you've got a client, let's say that they're a $2 million or a $5 million company, small business, they cannot operate without computers. And so it doesn't make sense to go hire just anybody every time they have a problem. They really need somebody who understands their technology, will help them build a pathway to the future, and will help their business to be as successful as possible. So I want to retain that word consultant. I want you to really honestly think of yourself as a consultant who's going to make your clients' businesses better through the appropriate use of technology, right? So a managed service provider is going to build that long-term relationship, and we're going to show you some of the key elements of how that happens. So everyone divides the pie differently. Like the key things that you're going to have is you get hourly labor. So for example, projects, in my opinion, are not part of managed services. Projects are extra. So a project would be something that I define as add, move, change. So if somebody says, okay, we're going to upgrade all the computers in the office to a new version of this software or the line of business software, or we're going to move everybody to an all remote system, right? Whatever it is, that's a project. That is not maintenance, right? That's an add, move, change. And so that's hourly labor. Now, you might sell projects. I encourage you to sell projects as a flat fee. So let's say you got a project and you say, oh, this is going to be $3,000. I encourage you to do that. And then I encourage you to be as efficient as possible to maximize the profit from that $3,000 job. That's completely separate from the day-to-day maintenance of the client's operation. So, and then where you draw that line varies completely. So I had one time a coaching client who he works primarily with dentists. Now, dentists, when they buy a chair and they buy their x-ray system and all of that, they buy it from these really huge companies that they pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for their equipment. And the big company they buy from provides maintenance for that equipment for the rest of their life. You know, it sounds like it's a good deal, except they pay an annual maintenance fee as well. So when you go to a dentist and you want to sell them managed services for the front office, they think their sort of default position is that you're going to set up 8 machines in the front office and it includes free maintenance for the rest of their life. And you need to be really clear with them that's not the case. So dentists, you know, often don't want to pay a lot of money for managed services. So the managed service piece might be very small because it doesn't fit with the rest of their business model. But that just means that they end up paying more hourly labor for all the adds, moves, and changes. So you have to be flexible in how you go to clients. On one hand, you want to have a package that is your go-to-market package, but you also need to be flexible about how you divide up the pie. There's also hardware and software labor, or hardware and software costs, and those things are going to vary depending on the client as well. I do think in the 21st century, you need to not focus on selling hardware as the biggest moneymaker in your business, unless you are an all hardware software business and don't actually provide much labor at all. If you focus on service, you need your revenue to come from service and from recurring revenue. So the mentality of break fix is literally that the client's going along, something breaks, they call you, you come in and fix it as quickly as you can. It's always high stress because every time you're in the office, A, they're losing money because their system is down, and B, they look at you and they just see a walking dollar sign going through costing them money, right? So in a break fix business, you are only profitable when your clients are losing money, which means you are in opposition to your clients. You fundamentally have 2 different goals about how their technology should work. And some clients are very cynical and say, well, you know, do you plan our obsolescence so you can make money? I hope your answer is no. So with managed services, you're focused on preventive maintenance. And, you know, in a perfect world, I always talk about my perfect network. My perfect network, all the equipment is less than 3 years old. It's all under warranty. And all of the software is completely up to date. Everything is patched, fixed, and updated. And guess what? Nothing breaks, right? So with managed services, you get a flat fee at the start of every month. And this is for the maintenance, right? And let's say that your fee is let's just say $2,000. All right. You have $2,000 in the bank on the first day of the month. Now, if something breaks at that client's office, you have to go fix it. You got to pay somebody to go fix it, or you have to do it yourself. You're the one who now has to pay money if something goes wrong. And so if that client has 0 problems in a month, you get to keep all of the money. In other words, you and the client are now facing in the same direction and you have the same goals. And I like to tell this old story about, I used to have competition that they were break fix and we were managed services. And every Monday they had this closet where they kept pillows, and every Monday they would take out the pillows and they would kneel down and they would pray that their clients' systems would break so they could feed their families, right? Because in break fix, they had to have a different view of the world. We worked to make sure everything worked perfectly through preventive maintenance every month on all those systems, patches, fixes, updates, and therefore we were aligned with the client. We had the same goals as the client. When the client's making money, we're making money. And the beautiful thing about it is that you start the month with your bank full of money, right? And, what you need to deliver this, in my opinion, the first and most important thing is an RMM, a remote monitoring and patch management system that allows you to do most of the maintenance. Again, I had somebody I was talking to, working with several years ago, who he made the mistake if he wanted to try an RMM. And so what he did is he got 100 licenses without his client's knowledge. He deployed it onto their machines, and he wanted to learn how to run reports and do things and all of that. And he wanted to basically make sure that he was completely comfortable with it before he started charging the client. And what happened was that problems started going away because patches were not missed, updates were not delayed, right? Things got patched and fixed and updated with essentially zero labor. And so then he had to go to his clients and say, I really hurt my own revenue because I was break fix, and then I put this tool in place, and now I, all my labor has disappeared and I'm losing money. So now I have to charge you for this tool. And that's a very difficult conversation. The thing to think about is if you're going to touch every desktop every month and apply all the updates and all the patches and all the fixes and defrag the hard drive and take care of everything, and then you were going to go to any servers that happen to be out there and you're going to do the same thing every month, think about spending maybe an hour a month per server and 15 minutes per month per desktop. That's the cost of actually hands-on maintaining those systems. And obviously those are just rough estimates, but do your calculation. And then if you can design your system so it's priced in a way where that is profitable, that you're going to get that amount of money from each client each month, then when you replace your labor with an RMM tool, what happens is you are giving the same amount of value and you continue to charge the client that value for maintenance, but you provide it more efficiently because you're using an RMM tool. So in my opinion, an RMM is the most important thing you need. And I know there are people who say, oh, we don't use an RMM tool. And then you look a little bit and you realize they're using the tools built into Microsoft. They're using Intune and they're calling it not an RMM. And, that's just, it's just a different way of looking at the world. So you need to have a tool to help you do this. And it takes time and it takes knowledge and it takes maintenance, but it's a tool that allows you to charge the value of your service, but provide that value without spending all the money on labor. You also need something called the PSA, a professional services automation tool. And these are widely available. Most PSAs you're going to think of as this is your ticketing system, but it also can do billing. It can help you with invoicing. It can help you with building the client relationship as well. And then you need a financial tool, whether that's QuickBooks or Xero or something else. Those are your key tools. But you also need a business plan. You need to say, okay, here's what we're going to do in the months ahead. And you need a service agreement. You obviously need good standard operating procedures. And you need good partners, good vendors, good suppliers, so that you know that you're only providing quality service and quality products. So when you look at managed services in a month, which again, you're going to get a copy of this, the basic outline is we're going to make a plan. We're going to create a 3-tiered pricing structure. You're going to weed your client garden, meaning that you're going to go through your clients and there are some of them that are just not going to fit with managed service. And you have to decide whether you're going to have some break fix or whether you're going to get rid of those clients. And I know that sounds difficult, but when you get with managed services, what happens is you sign a contract. Let's say your contracts are $1,000 each. Well, you sign one, that's $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year, guaranteed month after month after month. Then you sign 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pretty soon, you've paid for all of the lights and the internet and your office rent. And then from there, you move up and you pay for your employees. And pretty soon you get to the point where all of your bills are paid on the first day of the month. And it's just a matter of keeping as much money as possible by providing excellent uptime. So it becomes easier to get rid of clients who only give you $300 a year. So anyway, then we're going to finish the plan, put together a service agreement, print it up, go to your clients and sign those agreements. And I know that this sounds simplistic, but you really honestly can do this, and you really honestly can do it in 30 days. It's just a matter of, read it, go through the steps, take those actions, and start signing contracts. And by the way, the last thing the book will tell you is, and send me an email when you sign your first contract. I collect those emails and I love them. Now, one of the things you can't do, there's big mistakes that people do. One is that they call themselves managed service providers because that's the term that everybody in the industry uses, but they don't actually provide managed services. They provide break-fix services, and they call it managed services. And CISA, which is the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Administration for the United States government, is actively going after MSPs who sign contracts and don't deliver the services they've promised. So this is no longer a thing that you can just quote unquote get away with. The other thing is they basically sell break fix, but they do it at a flat fee, and clients don't like that. They like the preventive maintenance. You haven't really done yourself any good if you continue to have break fix habits and don't provide preventive maintenance. And finally, the most important thing is never, ever, ever use the term all you can eat. Don't let other people use that term. Every single person who uses this term is either lying to themselves or lying to you. There is no such thing as all you can eat. I love to collect photographs of all you can eat menus because they all have the rules like, oh, it doesn't include this, that, the other thing, right? There is no such thing as all you can eat. So stop using that term and don't let other people get away with it. So I have to just end by saying managed services is not a fad. I firmly, sincerely, deep in my heart, believe that this is how service will be provided going forward. And it's not about the flat fee. It's not about all you can eat. It is about using these tools in such a way and this business model in such a way that you pretty much guarantee that you're going to have good, solid recurring revenue for the rest of your career. I know we went through that at 100 miles an hour, but we've only got so many minutes in the day. We will take questions at the end, and we'll stay and answer as many as we can. With that, I'm going to introduce Sean Rogers, who is the Sales Operations and Product Development Manager at Zyxel, and he's going to be talking a little bit, and then we'll talk to Brenton Twite, who is from Digital Bay, about his move to his transition to becoming a managed service provider. So Sean, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and stop my share. And you are on.
All right, give me just 1 second and we'll get it up and running.
And by the way, for folks who put the question in, just if you go to find Karl Palachuk on any social media, I assure you, you will find me.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So I'm going to talk a few minutes here about Zyxel's Nebula platform. This is essentially a free RMM that we provide that allows you to monitor and manage all of your customers, all of their networks, all of their sites. Nebula is not new. It is something we launched all the way back in 2016. And it's what we would call a full stack cloud networking solution for SMB. Back in the day when it came to cloud networking, there were really two types. There was cloud networking solutions that were focused just on one type of product, primarily access points. And then if you wanted something that could handle more than just access points, the only thing out there really was Cisco's Meraki. It was a great product, great platform, but can be very, very expensive, especially on some of your larger networks. So we wanted to introduce something to the market that was similar to that, but it was much more affordable for your smaller MSPs, VARs, and systems integrators. So the Nebula solution itself basically offloads everything to the cloud when it comes to setting up new hardware, monitoring your networks, making configuration and firmware updates. And the idea is basically to reduce ever having to go on the customer site and to spend as little time there as possible. You know, primarily basically being only needing to roll a truck if there's some hardware that needs to be replaced. So Nebula gives you a centralized interface for all of your hardware, your switches, your access points, your firewall gateways. There's no software or hardware that needs to be installed on site to run this. The agent is built into the hardware itself. We have what we call zero-touch provisioning. Basically, as long as you can plug in the device so it has power and an internet connection, the cloud takes care of everything else for you, including firmware updates and pushing out updates, configuration changes, things like that. So the Nebula solution itself is kind of a mixed bag here of different things. The primary one here being our Nebula Control Center. That is the cloud portion of Nebula. So anytime you want to take a look at any of your customers' networks or look at some specific hardware for configuration changes, you simply go to nebula.zyxel.com, log in, and choose the customer and site you want to take a look at. We also offer for you as part of this here, we offer the firewall hardware, our switch hardware, access points. We have our LTE mobile router, the LTE 7461N. So if you're looking to provide, you know, network services someplace where you don't have a physical wired connection, or you'd like to add a mobile connection as a backup, we have the ability to do that and be able to manage that CPE device in the Nebula Cloud. And then now we're in the process of launching our new SCR, our Secured Cloud Router, a lightweight UTM subscription-free router that can be used for smaller offices, home installs, things like that. And then on top of all of that, we do have our mobile app. So the mobile app is designed for Android and iOS, specifically providing sort of a lightweight way of managing things on those two devices. It's looking at for your mobile phones. It does provide you some basic configuration, but our planning with Nebula is that, you know, networks can get really complicated and no one wants to be configuring, you know, policy routes on your firewall through a mobile app. So the main configuration is all done through a web interface. So setting up a Zyxel network here with Nebula is pretty simple. At any point, you can log into the Nebula cloud and start setting up your customer and their sites. So you can start, you know, setting up your customer long before you've settled on your hardware, and you can start setting up some basic configurations on the wireless sides of things. Even before you've bought your first access point, you can be setting up SSIDs, you know, captive portals, landing pages, things like that. On the switches, you can start configuring your VLAN configurations and stuff. When you finally do settle on the hardware and order it, once you get that hardware, you can use the mobile app and scan a QR code found on the outside of the box, and then assign that device to your customer's network. And then when it finally does get onto the customer site installed, as soon as it has power and an internet connection, it will reach out to the cloud, see where it's supposed to be, and start downloading its configuration for you. And then at that point, you can start configuring you know, some specific stuff that, you know, like radio settings on a per AP basis, some of your port-based settings on your switches and things like that. And then going forward, you just, anytime you want to manage that network, you simply log into nebula.zyxel.com. I did see a question come in from Colin, and yes, Nebula is for managing Zyxel Nebula compatible hardware. Your whole network does not need to be Zyxel. In fact, we've got a lot of people that use Nebula just for access points because their customers already have a perfectly configured and suitable firewall or switch network. They just needed to add and upgrade their wireless network. So in those cases, Nebula will let you manage your wireless network, and you would still manage the other vendors' hardware however they have it set up, whether that's directly or through whatever management platforms they offer. So I'll start going through some of the features here in Nebula. Some of these are going to be kind of repeats here for us. So we make it really easy for you to set up a new network. You just log into Nebula. You click you want to create a new customer for you and a new site. And we've got a very basic wizard that'll cover some of the basic settings for you to get you started. Again, when it comes to the hardware itself, The switches and access points have a QR code that's both on the belly of the device and on the box that they come in. So you don't even need to take it out of the box to scan that QR code and assign that device to one of your customers. When it comes to our firewall products, there's a couple extra steps you need to take just because, firewalls are the most important part of your network, protecting your LAN from all the nasty things out there on the WAN. So we put a few extra safety steps in there to make sure that the device is being assigned to where you want it to be. But it's not very hard, just a couple extra steps for those devices. So the Nebula Control Center is what you see when you log in. It provides a unified single pane of glass for monitoring your networks, for configuring your networks, for performing firmware updates, managing licensing, etc. So it provides you a unified and central interface for everything. As I mentioned before, there's zero-touch provisioning. Plug in a device, as long as it's got an IP address and an internet connection and power, it will reach out to the cloud and everything will be handled through the cloud itself. Now, one question we get is, what happens if I need a fixed IP address? So that is the only time, if you're using Nebula, you would need to manually configure a device directly, is if you want to set them up to use fixed IP addresses out of the box. Our suggestion is use DHCP on the network when you first set it up and then convert everything over to fixed IP after. But if you can't do that for whatever reason, then you can log into the device directly to be able to set that static IP configuration. And Nebula was designed from the ground up to make it really easy to jump between different sites for your customer, to make it easy to jump between different customers. So with a zero-touch provisioning, unlike some of the other solutions that are out there, you don't need to configure the device to tell it it's going to work on the cloud. You don't need to point it towards the cloud. You don't need any other hardware located on the network like a cloud key or any virtual machines or software running on a server somewhere. The entire cloud tool is built into the hardware itself. So any Nebula compatible hardware is just automatically going to work in the cloud. Now we offer what we call Nebula Flex. So most of our hardware is called Nebula Flex. It gives you the flexibility of being able to manage the device locally or put it in cloud mode and manage it through the cloud. So you're only using one mode at any one time. But again, to switch it over into cloud mode, you don't have to touch the physical device itself. You simply log into Nebula, scan that QR code and assign it, and the device will automatically convert over to cloud mode, and then vice versa. If for some reason you want to take it out of cloud mode, you simply remove it from the cloud and the hardware will automatically reboot into standalone managed mode. So here's what you see when you first log into one of your customers' sites. We've got this landing page for you. Some of these widgets you see here on the bottom, these are all fully customizable. So you can choose which widgets are valuable for you at that customer, and you can remove those that you're not interested in. But you can see here, we're showing you a quick view here of what type of devices you have, how many are online, if any of them are experiencing any sort of connectivity issues. And then we can show you things here like how much of your PoE budget is currently being utilized versus available budget there. We can show you what's going on in your wireless network. Is it being overloaded? How many users are currently connected? And if you're using one of our firewalls, we can show you which applications are using bandwidth, which users are using bandwidth, etc. To switch between sites and customers, there's a simple drop-down menu up here. One is a list of your customers, and then once you've chosen a customer, one is the list of their sites. So it's really quick and easy to jump from one to another. We've got a search function, so if you're looking for a certain piece of hardware, you can quickly search for that. And then all your configuration and monitoring is over here on the left-hand side of the interface. And we've split those up into two categories, basically configuration or monitoring. So I'm just going to show you really quickly here on the AP side of things. We make it really easy to create site-wide SSIDs and be able to configure things like the security being used, the bands being used, VLANs for that SSID, captive portal if you're going to have it. We have a smart guest VLAN function where you can say, okay, this is going to be a guest network for people visiting my customer, and it'll automatically configure a lot of settings like your VLAN, your layer 2 isolation to separate that network from the corporate networks that may also be running there. So we do offer licenses. So now the core version of Nebula is free. There is no limit to the number of devices you can manage with the free version of Nebula. There is no limitation to the number of customers you can manage. So you can have unlimited customers, unlimited devices using the free version of Nebula, but we do offer licenses that unlock some additional features. Now, these licenses are normally sold as an annual license. And if at any point those licenses expire, your network just drops back to the free version. At no point are you being locked out because you're not paying for one of these things. You just lose access to some of those extra features. And those extra features are primarily aimed at features for those of you that are providing managed services. So the main one that we have here is Nebula Pro Pack. I won't get into wholesale cost, but regular price that we suggest you sell these to your customers is about $30 per year per device. So significantly cheaper than Meraki and some of our other competition out there as far as these licenses go. And they unlock additional features for you, things like email alerts, unlimited number of admin accounts, an audit log that tracks for a year every configuration change and who made it, etc. For those of you that don't need all of those features, we also offer a plus pack version, which is sort of a lightweight, just the benefits of the most popular features, I would say, in there, and that runs for about $12 per device per year. We also offer what's called the Nebula MSP pack. And that's a license for a user that unlocks additional features across all of the devices that user is managing, or all the networks that user is managing. I'm not going to go in depth on these. On today's thing, we don't have time for that, but that is something if you're interested in. We've got breakdowns on our website, and we've got stuff we can send you if you talk to one of our salespeople that shows you the differences between all three. The majority of our customers are just using the free version of Nebula. So I'm going to go through some of the additional features we've got here in the Nebula Cloud, some of which require additional payment for those Pro or Plus pack licenses. So the one here that's probably the one that's most in demand is basically push alerts or email notifications when a device goes offline. So that is something that does require the Plus or Pro pack. We have what I mentioned before, which is a configuration log, where we basically track over a year every configuration change, when it was made and who made it. So it's a great tool when you're troubleshooting the network, so you can see, well, wait a minute, is this configuration change the problem? You can see, wait a minute, that was done 3 months ago. The problem just started this last weekend. That must not be it. It must be something else. So it helps you track it down, or find out, which of your admins made that change, so you can ask them why they did it and find out what was going on at the time. We also have misconfiguration protection. Now, that does not require ProPack. That's part of the free version of Nebula. And basically, it helps prevent you. It tracks when you're making changes to IP addresses or VLANs, and tries to prevent you from accidentally isolating or drop a device off the network. I'm sure we've all done that at some point. You're configuring VLANs, you misconfigure a VLAN, or you do it in the wrong order, and suddenly your device is offline, and the only way to get it offline is to go on site and hardware reset it. So our Nebula Cloud will try to prevent that from happening and warn you when you're seeing something like that. Firmware updates are all handled in the cloud, and you are allowed to schedule those based on your customer's needs. So, if a customer wants, firmware updates, often will take your network offline for a few minutes. So you can say, okay, let's do, this customer wants it Saturday at 3 a.m. This customer wants it Monday nights at 7. You can set that up. Now, the Pro version of Nebula unlocks some additional scheduling features, like being able to set up different schedules for different types of devices, or set up schedules independently for each individual device. But scheduled firmware updates are part of the free version of Nebula. We have the ability here to do floor plans. So we work with Google Maps. So you can put customer sites on their physical locations on a Google map to make it easier just to visualize where they are and pull them up. And then also we can load in any sort of floor plan you have, and then you can put individual devices on that floor plan. So, 6 months or a year down the road, when you have to go on site for whatever the reason may be, you can easily look up in the mobile app or on the web and see where the device is that you need to service is located at. Now, if you have the Plus or Pro version of Nebula, we also can create an automatic topology view for you, showing you which devices are plugged into which other devices, so you can see what's upstream from what. So it's just a quick, easy way, again, when it comes to troubleshooting your networks, to seeing, what's connected to what, so you can work backwards to find the source of the problem. And then we've got live tools through the cloud that allow you to do troubleshooting things there, pinging from devices, trace routes, things like that from each individual Nebula device. We have the ability here to do, when you log in, to take a look at what's going on. So you can see, what devices are connected to the network, how long they've been connected, all sorts of other information on them. We also have the ability, if you have Nebula Plus or Pro, the ability to schedule these reports to automatically get emailed out on whatever schedule you want. So you can have them sent out to your customer, maybe to show them what's going on the network, or just sent out to your IT team so they can keep an eye on things without logging into the Nebula interface. And then if you have here some of the other stuff that the Pro Pack offers, the ability to very easily and quickly synchronize between different sites. So if your customer's got certain settings that are going to change across all of their sites, you can do that quickly and easily using synchronization. We have the ability to clone existing switch configs and apply those to new switches. So if you're creating a new network, you can clone the existing network from their other site and take a shortcut to getting everything configured there. The ability to back up and restore your switch configurations, and to set up a configuration template to automatically push out certain settings that are going to be consistent across all of the devices on the network. And then with the MSP license, it unlocks for you a new MSP portal, and it basically gives you a quick, easy way to see what's going on all of your customers with a quick view. So it'll show you a list of all your customers. It'll let you know all of their sites, whether they're using the free version or the pay or one of the Nebula licenses. If they are using Nebula licenses, if anything's going to be expiring in the near future, and just the status of those sites. Are they online, or any of them having connectivity issues, etc. It also unlocks some additional features here for you. So it allows you to rebrand the Nebula interface with your logo. So you can, if you're providing your customers access to the Nebula cloud, so someone locally there, the local IT guy, can log in and take a look at things, you'll see your logo instead of our logo. We have the ability in here to replace our support contact information with your support contact information. And we give you the ability to set up teams. So if you've got a lot of admins working for you, it's a lot easier to manage them as teams, assign different admins to different teams, and then add or remove teams from different sites or customers that you want them to have access to. And then it also gives you the ability to sync and clone configurations between different customers of yours. And then lastly, if you have this MSP license, it unlocks for all of your customers you're managing, whether they're using the free version of Nebula or one of the paid versions. It gives them all the ability to send you push or email alerts when devices go offline. So I'm just going to quickly here go through some of the devices. This is just showing you, this is our current Nebula portfolio. So the devices up here on the top, these are our standard Nebula Flex. So you can choose to manage them in the cloud or manage them standalone. And then here at the bottom are our Pro devices. So the Nebula Pro devices just come bundled with 1 year of Nebula Pro Pack out of the box. That's the primary difference between them and the other models. So I'm not going to go through them all, but we've got quite a lineup of access points here for you, serving everything from the sub $80 access point all the way up to, $600, $700 business heavy duty access points, a full range of switches, gigabit, multi-gig, all 10 gig that can be managed through the Nebula cloud. We've got our new SCR series firewall device, lightweight firewall device that can be used in homes, small offices, things like that. And then our more traditional here, heavy duty UTM security appliances, and our LTE mobile router here for you. So I just want to talk quickly here about the architectural benefits of Nebula and using Nebula. It's cloud hosted. We use the cloud. We are the ones who manage that. So there's nothing you need to worry about on your end when it comes to managing, a cloud-based server. We do that for you. We are hosted on Amazon AWS, probably one of the biggest and most reliable cloud-hosted platforms out there. That is what is running Nebula for you. And it makes it really easy for you to scale. At any point, you can add additional customers or additional devices, and it will scale and continue to perform great for you. As I mentioned before, the Nebula devices require nothing special on the local network to be able to be managed through the cloud. They just need access to the internet. One key thing here, because these are some of the questions we get, is no user data is passing through the cloud. The cloud is there for management and for storing logs from the devices. All of your customers' traffic stays on the local network or goes out to the internet. None of it goes through our cloud there for you. And the technology we use to communicate between our devices in the cloud is not something we've cooked up in-house. It's behind closed doors. We use the industry standard NetConf protocol to handle communications between our devices in the cloud. So it's an industry standard that provides that level of security and peace of mind when it comes to our cloud managed platform. So again, free version of Nebula is there for you. It is unlimited devices, unlimited amount of time, unlimited amount of customers for you, and really acts as your RMM to be able to make it really easy for you to keep an eye on what's going on in your customers' networks. So we'll just finish it up here by saying, it's easy to use. It simplifies your network deployment, so you're spending less time configuring things, especially less time on site. You really only need to plug in the hardware and get it where it needs to go. You don't need to be spending time on site doing your configuration. Low cost of investment. It costs you nothing extra to use Nebula. Very easy to configure. We've spent a lot of time on the GUI simplifying things, making it easy for you to do advanced network configurations. Reduces the amount of time you've got to set up. You don't have to worry about remote management, setting up VPNs for remote access or port forwards. And you have the peace of mind of knowing that the Nebula cloud is always being automatically updated for you and staying ahead of whatever the latest security issues may be, thanks to the being hosted in the Amazon AWS cloud and our engineering team being on top of updates and security issues there for you. It's easy to use, easy to buy. So that is it as far as my presentation goes. We'll get to some of the questions. I did see there were some questions coming in as I was talking. So we'll get to those here at the end. But I believe right now it is Brenton's turn to talk. So I'll go ahead and stop my share. I think, Karl, you've got a slide you want to put up. So Brenton here, he is the general manager and co-owner of Digital Bay. So Digital Bay is an MSP. They're based out of Wisconsin. And he's in charge basically of overseeing the IT technicians. So if there's any issues, any problems, anything like that, he is the first guy that those technicians are going to come to with any issues that he may have. So he knows all the pros and cons of being an MSP, of dealing with some of the troublesome customers out there that may be. And Digital Bay itself, it's a family-owned operation. They deal with everything from, specialized networking, servers, phone systems, cabling, fiber optics, security cameras, security systems, etc. So he's got a lot of experience with all the different technologies that are out there that you may want to roll into your MSP solution.
So
go ahead, Karl.
I was just going to say, so Brenton, why don't you tell the story, because you came from basically the telco side, but now are fully managed services.
Yeah. So essentially I joined the company back in 2016. My father started Digital Bay back in 2010, I want to say. And he strictly came from the phone, data cabling, and maybe did some cameras, but typically the strong area was the phone systems. So the big company that he did was like Menards. If people have heard of Menards, he essentially did every single phone system throughout the entire country for Menards at one point. So that was a big one, but he kind of left the company he was with and started his own, which was kind of a daunting task, or just daunting by itself. But yeah, that's, and then when I joined back in 2016, it was out of his own home. So it was pretty small. And my brother joined us about a year later, and we kind of saw, because we started doing hosted phones. We were doing on-premise and hosted. And then we obviously just the data cabling camera stuff. But we kind of saw the writing on the wall at some point. So essentially we were working with a lot of different IT companies, but a lot of the time they would never bring us in. It was kind of, we brought them into a lot of customers, but it never went the other way. So we kind of saw it as, hey, we probably should start doing something more than just this, because at some point, because some of these guys I already knew some of them were already starting to do some of their own hosted phones and other things like that. So at some point we would just be kind of cut out altogether. So we kind of saw, okay, hey, we need to change this up. We need to do something different. Not different, but do more. We need to do something where we can provide not only phones, but essentially kind of everything that maybe a company may need. So what one of our phrases is a complete solutions provider. So we try to provide the solutions a lot of these businesses need for their technology services. So now we're doing obviously an MSP, but we're doing not only hosted phones, we're doing networks, we're doing everything that kind of Sean obviously shared a little bit of, but that's kind of a brief. Is that, you need anything else on that one, Karl? Is that?
Well, yeah, it's quite a transition. The interesting part is that a lot of people don't put phones into their managed services because their prospects already are in the middle of a 2-year or a 3-year phone deal, and so they don't want to lose a sale because they've got the phones. But you guys, you already had those phone deals, so it was a matter of just converting clients to
right.
An ongoing recurring revenue model. So what do you think are the benefits of being an MSP versus break fix?
Benefits, and I know you hit on it, having an RMM tool is incredibly important, because these companies that are paying for us as an MSP as opposed to break fix, we're already pretty aware of what's going on, and we're already patching a lot of their systems and updating a lot of their systems, and a lot of that the RMM tools will do it automatically, as long as you pre-build a lot of certain things in there, which obviously takes time, takes learning, but that kind of is something that we learned and have obviously, when you start something, you also fail at things too, but that's how you learn, right? So yeah, did I answer your question? Or
Yeah. So we have a few questions. That's interesting. We have some questions that demonstrate that there are people who have been in this business a long time and have fairly, high level questions. And we have other folks who are in the transition period. How did you protect your revenue as you made the switch to managed services? Was that an issue at all in terms of, you had one source of revenue, now you're moving to a different source?
I don't think it was an issue for us, I would say. I think it actually increased our revenue in the long run, because we obviously were providing more services, additional services, to the point where some of the businesses and customers we dealt with, some of them were excited to work with us directly because they already liked us. And we're a little different because obviously family-owned business, we just have more of I can't say this is true for every company, everybody's different, but I guess for us, we just feel like we're very personable with people, where I know some people in the MSP side can sometimes just they don't want to deal with the people. They just want to make sure it's taken care of. And that's obviously a choice on everybody's end, but I know some customers can be difficult, of course. I've met many of them, but yeah, I would say there were not really any major issues on that side.
Well, so two things. First of all, I just throw in that I think the personal side is what separates you from somebody who's never going to have a long-term relationship with the client. If you don't dig into that personal side, the client, you're just another person who showed up at their door and fixed something,
Yep.
The other thing is, do you think the recurring revenue has given you the opportunity to try more new things because you don't have to worry that you're going to be running out of money one month because you tried some new adventure?
Yeah, I would say so. It definitely has given us that drive to try new things. We're always open to new things now, I think. I think as long as we take it carefully, try to do it if we can, try to test it out in our office if we can. If a customer wants us to do something that we've never done, we'll just and again, it depends on the customer, but sometimes we're upfront about, hey, we've never done this area, but we'll definitely do it for you, and we'll get it taken care of. Essentially, we'll get you taken care of. So if something happens, we're here to make sure we follow through to the end. And so, and you can kind of obviously know those customers, because some people won't want to hear that, but other times some customers just want you to do it because they just trust you. And again, that relationship is what's key to with some of these customers.
Right. So finally, let me just ask about our hosts here, Nebula, right? Like, so how did you use Nebula to basically make the move?
Yeah, so we actually originally were doing Cisco Meraki products. That was the first. I mean, we did some. I guess before that, we did some very, very basic routers, which that's not an MSP at all. But basically, we ended up doing Cisco Meraki for a time, and we really, so the product is, and even Sean said, like, product is a good product, but the issue we had with Cisco Meraki was the cost. The cost was very high for some of our end customers. And I think the biggest thing that I think frustrated us the most, and for the customer, was if you don't pay the license, the device turns into a brick. And that's a big problem when you're providing a service. And I mean, maybe it's not a problem for some people, but to us, it was a big problem, because it kind of strong arms somebody to say, hey, you need to update the license or your devices won't work. And that's kind of, to me, that's not a good way to do business with people. And that's where Nebula, Zyxel came in the picture. We ended up learning about them through, we have basically a meeting every year, a couple different areas of the country with some other businesses. But basically, we ended up learning about Zyxel and what they do, and came to really like what they're doing and appreciate them. And we ended up trying some of their products, and were pleasantly surprised with not only simplicity of scanning, like when you can create the network before you even have the devices, which is awesome. And then you can, once you get them, you just scan the device and you just adds it with the QR code, just adds it right there. You don't have to do anything else, just add it to that site. And
very cool.
And auto config. And it's just, I mean, it was just a really cool product for us. And essentially, if the customer doesn't want to pay for the licensing on those devices, they still work. Even the firewalls, if they don't want to pay for the firewall, for the licensing to basically keep, their network secure, that device will still function. It just works more like a basic router, right? It's not doing all of the additional things like antivirus, all that stuff, malware. So,
right, but it's not a brick.
But it's not a brick. It still works.
Very good. Sean, you want to take over and see what kind of questions we have?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start doing some of that. So the first one here we have was from Bismarck, and he was asking for our social media platform. So I think you've kind of already gotten to that with that current slide that's up there. I will add from the Zyxel side of things. On LinkedIn, we are Zyxel US channel. So Zyxel is a large multinational corporation. We do business all over the globe. So there's a bunch of different Zyxels that will show up on there. Some will be nice enough to include where they're operating out of, some don't. So if you're looking to link up with us on LinkedIn, it's Zyxel US channel. And on YouTube, it's Zyxel America channel. So we do 2 webinars a week. So most of those webinars are recorded and then posted up there for you. So we've got all sorts of different topics on there. We also on our YouTube have video case studies and success stories, guides for, best practices, things like that. So Zyxel US channel on LinkedIn, Zyxel America channel on YouTube. So this is a question for you, Karl. It's coming from Matt Cox. And he was asking here, break fix for a flat fee, wouldn't that be the same as all you can eat?
Well, not exactly, although I understand your point. So first of all, the break fix for a flat fee, even though the people who sell it call it managed services, the main thing is that they're not doing preventive maintenance. But the second thing is that they tell their clients it's a flat fee, but when the client says, hey, guess what? I just bought all of these closeout Windows 8 machines at some junk shop online, and I know they can be upgraded to Windows 11. I need you to do that, and I don't want you to charge me anything because you said it's all covered. That's all you can eat, right? So what's going to happen is that in this case, the client doesn't really know what they've bought. And so the consultant basically gets to go to them and say, oh, yeah, that's not covered. So here's another bill, here's another bill, here's another bill. So it's kind of a stark example that there is no such thing as all you can eat. Those clients don't know what they've bought. They hate it. And the worst part for everybody on this call, there's now 70 people on the call. The worst part for all of us is clients meet these people and they think that's what our industry is like. And we have to fight that perception of our industry by providing good ethical service and having a code of ethics that's posted on your website. And I know that's off topic, but I'm just telling you, you got to do business the right way, or you cannot build a long-term lasting relationship, which, as you just heard Brenton say, it's the most important part of his business is the long-term relationships, right? And it should be for all of us. So I'm done with my soapbox.
All right, so we'll move on here to Anthony. So Anthony is asking, I guess this is a question for me, where are our products manufactured? How do you ensure supply chain security? So Zyxel has been around since 1989 making networking equipment. So we've been doing this for a long time. Our headquarters is based out of Hsinchu, Taiwan. That was where we were founded. Our US office has been based out of Anaheim and the general Anaheim vicinity for basically that entire time. For those of you who know the area, we've sort of floated around between the Anaheim Canyon and Placentia and back and forth. So just as we grew and needed new buildings. So we've been doing this for a while. I'm not really big on the security side of things, but I know all of our products comply with I think it's NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, for some of the products that are manufactured in China. So some stuff's in Taiwan, some stuff's in China, but the NDAA has a list of suppliers and companies who cannot be involved in manufacturing your hardware or the components for your hardware. So we are fully NDAA compliant as far as that goes. When it comes to something like the Nebula Cloud, again, we're hosted on AWS, but we are a huge multinational company. So actually most of our business these days is out of Europe. So we are GDPR compliant there. So they've got a lot of restrictions when it comes to privacy rights, security, and things like that. So we meet all of those as all of the other requisite security legislation in the various countries that we operate in. I hope that helps answer the question. Like I said, I'm not too into it, but I do know that hasn't been an issue for us in the past. Also, just on the software side of things, much of our software is open source and is available there. We also do work with independent security researchers, who are out there constantly battering on a lot of our products and then notify us, if they found anything that may be a potential risk. We have a user forum, forum.zyxel.com, I believe, or forums. Forget if there's an S on there or not, but that's a user forum. It's also where we post all of our latest firmware updates, patch notes, security advisories, things like that. So it's a nice place for you to keep an eye on if you're really concerned about security and updates and things like that. Sergey is asking another question for me, which is, does Nebula show device CPU and memory utilization? And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that. It's not something I generally use. Let me pull up Nebula real quick. I've just got it on my mobile device, so it's definitely not on the mobile device for access points. However, having said that, I think it is something that is available for the firewall gateways, because I know when I've seen this when we've been troubleshooting issues with people bringing up CPU utilization or memory utilization when trying to troubleshoot some problems that we have. So I believe it's in there, at least for the firewall products, and maybe in there for some other stuff. I apologize. I don't do a lot of network troubleshooting these days, so I don't know off the top of my head. Taking another look here. This is another technical question from Theodore. And again, it's another one I may not know the answer to. So for those of you guys, if I'm not answering your question well enough, just send me an email. My email's up there on screen, Sean R. Sean spelled SHAWN R at Zyxel.com. And I can get the answers for you, even if I don't know them off the top of my head. So does the Nebula Cloud support Azure AD Identity Management, SSO for technicians, API integration into SIEM? So both of those I do not know. And then does the firmware log traffic and have retention? So I think the last one I can answer. So the Nebula Cloud itself logs traffic. The free version of Nebula keeps a rolling 24 hours of log information. We do have the ability to use syslog to export out that information, and we also support SNMP if you have some other tools that you want for tracking things going on there. So you're not totally reliant on us. The Plus version of Nebula, if you upgrade to the Plus license, we store a week's worth of logs in our cloud. And then the Pro version of Nebula stores a year's worth of log information. So I think that may be what you're asking about. I do know there are requirements in Europe that we comply with where it comes to tracking, what websites guests are visiting and things like that. So we do have the ability to support that. But for more detailed answers, send me an email and I'll get our sales engineer to look into it and write up an answer for you.
I have to say the configuration log is huge for troubleshooting. Nobody thinks about it until the day you need it. And then you're like, who kept track of when we did what?
Yep. So next question from Matt. This is for Brenton. Hopefully you're still there, Brenton.
Yep.
Interested to hear advice you may have for running your break fix business at the same time you're trying to convert to managed services. Did you need to protect revenue while also shopping for RMM, PSA financial tools, or just a lot of long days?
It's a lot. Well, I would say, let's see, in regard to, missed that. Let me go back to that question here. But so I guess in regard to that question, break fix is definitely can be frustrating at times. Just because obviously sometimes all the blue, if somebody calls and they're panicking because everything's down, but we're not managing anything. It's one of those where it's kind of an area where we can use it as an opportunity to say, hey, in the moment, obviously you want to take care of the customer and fix them. And at times you can only do what you can do if you're already taking care of your managed, the providers that are already you're doing MSP with, you are the MSP for. But I would say that you can also use it as an opportunity to get in there and say, hey, we can start to implement a monthly cost where we can say, hey, this is what's going on. We can also put our agents on your PCs, monitor things, see what's going on, be notified if this falls through, have a backup plan. If let's say they have a server on site and the server fails, what's going to happen? Where's the backup? Is there a backup? So that's where we could start to get in there. But in the initial moment, we just want to take care of them. And I would be honest, a little bit, we don't always prioritize those that are the break fix option, especially after we have those conversations with them. But we prioritize them to the point where if it's an emergency, we do provide that. And we do prioritize that. But if it's something where they need something minor, like a minor change, we try to take care of those that are we're providing managed services for first. So it just, you play that game. Let me see. So did you need to protect revenue?
I got to say,
did I answer that question? What?
It's not really a game. The reality is you've got a client who has made a commitment to you and is paying you every month, and you got somebody else who's made no commitment to you, and they call you when their stuff breaks. And it's sort of like, lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. Right. You want to give them service, but you are not going to leave a client that you have an ongoing long-term relationship with for somebody who calls you once a year because something broke.
100%. Yep. I agree.
So Rochelle asked me to go ahead and announce the winners of the gift cards. And they are, I hope these people are still online here, Josh Erickson and Paul Lambert. Congratulations.
All right. We'll move on to the next question. Congratulations to those two. So we've only got 2 questions left. Both are for Brenton. So if there's any other questions, guys, now's the time to send them in. So both of these are for Brenton from Matt. One was asking, any lessons you learned when shopping for tools to run your business. And then also, I'll just throw the second one in there as well. Interested to hear any vision Brenton has for the future of scaling Digital Bay. What will take you to the next level?
Well, I guess we'll start with the first one. So any lessons learned in shopping for tools to run your business? I guess one thing I would just add in regard to that, or what I would say about that is you obviously want a tool that's going to assist and not cause more pain. Because I know there's so many tools out there, so many other applications, so many RMMs to choose from, so many other things. And I think you need to find the tool that works best for you to keep yourself organized. Because like I know that some applications just have 1,000 different things to choose from and do, and sometimes that can be overwhelming. So cost is obviously important to us too. I guess we have about 10 of us. So we're not a massive company, but we need something that's cost effective, does a good job. So yeah, you kind of got to kind of find what's going to work best for you. Doing a demo of a program is where you're going to want to start. So demo those out, try those out, and see if it makes sense to you and your company. So, and for vision for scaling Digital Bay, well, we are no longer in my father's house. I know I did say that originally a little bit, but we actually have a building. We actually just did a bunch of construction recently to add on to here because we're kind of maxing out of space. So it's a good problem to have. So we want to continue to grow it in regard to, first of all, just learning how to become more and more organized, and because there's always areas that we can all grow in. Sometimes when you get those, sometimes working with so many different technology or applications or hardware, there are always areas that we just need to say, hey, we're not going to do that. So we can become better in an area. So just kind of finding your focus on what areas you can do best in, and continuing to market yourself in that way. So you can say, hey, we can provide you service for this, this, and this. I think that's for us, for growing, that's kind of something we do. And we don't actually do any marketing on our end because we have so many people that will actually tell others, which is so word of mouth. And we don't really want to do any additional marketing because we are actually very busy. So it's a good problem to have. So.
Yep.
Okay, let me go ahead and move on here. I think the next few are going to be, for Karl. What's the best way of moving from break fix to MSP from Faraz?
So obviously, you're going to get the book that is the recipe. So I encourage you to actually read that and go through the exercises. But the bottom line is that if you have an existing business and you've got existing clients, then what you need to do is first make sure that you are providing monthly maintenance. And that is, they just have to buy into the concept that things break less when you do regular patches, fixes, and updates, that everything gets tuned up. We put our hands on your equipment and we make sure everything works perfectly. And once your clients buy into that and they get that really does make a difference, then you go to them and say, okay, here's what I want to do. I want to move you to a flat fee for the maintenance part of this. It doesn't include adds, moves, and changes, but for the maintenance piece of this, right? You've been doing this at this point, right? You've been doing this. You bought into the maintenance piece. What we want to do is flatten your bill across the year, because what happens with the way you classically do support is, one month they're going to have one machine that needs problems or has problems and needs attention. The next month they're going to have 6, and the next month they're going to have 1, and the next month they're going to have 2, and their bill goes up and down, up and up and down. But if you take what they pay for the year divided by 12, right, that's a great start for what they can expect their maintenance to be. And then it's just a matter of making that transition to the flat fee. And I know, again, I make it sound easier than it is, but there is a step-by-step procedure in the book, Managed Services in a Month. So if you haven't read it recently or you haven't read it at all, that really is where the recipe is.
Okay, next question is from David. He's asking, I've tried multiple PSAs, and so far they've all been either clunky, slow, or so massive that it would take a full-time employee to manage them. What are some recommendations for small shops?
Well, unfortunately, you have to try and figure out one that fits with what you want to do. A lot of the PSAs have a lot of functions that are not actually helpful for you. And I'd say that there's certain things, in my opinion, you can ignore the scheduling function. The scheduling function is easy to build into a PSA because the coders literally drag and drop a schedule thing, and then they point to it and they're 90% of the way. But that doesn't mean that it's useful for your business. I like to have technicians work from highest to lowest priority and work from oldest to newest. So basically, let's assume you don't have any emergencies. So let's go to high priority stuff. A technician, when they're free, should take the oldest high priority ticket and work it. And then the next and the next and the next, and then you work down to the medium priorities. So if you work from highest to lowest, oldest to newest, then you don't need to schedule very much. And so you don't need to learn that piece of your project, and you don't need to stack up people's schedules where, it's like a doctor's office. At 9:05, you're off for the day and you never get back on schedule. Don't do that to yourself. So you can simplify things a bit in that you can ignore that module. The other module you could ignore, and a lot of people don't believe this, and it is the entire system of what expectations people have. I do not believe in service level agreements. I believe in service agreements, but not service level agreements. Clients in small business absolutely 100% do not care about this. People in our industry started paying attention to, response times and work times and all of this because it was built into their PSA. And if you ask your clients, are you getting good service in a reasonable amount of time? They're going to say yes. Otherwise, they would have found somebody else. So that whole thing where you spend half of your energy worrying about whether or not somebody got a call back in 15.2 minutes is just absolutely absurd. Don't waste any of your energy on it. You need to fundamentally run your business the way you want to run it. Find clients who want to do business with somebody who runs their business that way. And then find the tools that help you maximize the way you want to run your business. And it means you got to take ownership of it, but it also means that you need to look at the tools that do the very specific things that you need in terms of reporting and invoicing and managing tickets. And all the rest is fluff. And so, reevaluate tools based on the kind of company you want to do business with and whether or not it has the core key features that you actually are going to use in your business. I hope that's helpful. But you can also email me and say, what the hell were you talking about? And I'll be happy to talk to you.
The next question here is from Rusty. Rusty is asking, we haven't talked today about a pricing model for MSPs. He's saying we've looked at options, but it can be complicated. For example, price by endpoint, and then it gets cut off. I think you got the gist of the question.
Yeah.
There.
Well, so in Managed Services in a Month, I talk about per device pricing, which is frequently the easiest if you're getting started because you can count devices. But I also talk about per user. I also, just a shout out to Zyxel. I'd love to come back and do an entire webinar on pricing and bundling because I don't think that you should take a $30 a year device and sell it to your clients. I think you should bundle into your managed services, and the clients just get everything that they need to run their business successfully. But you don't nickel and dime them with every little tool. That's just my opinion. But in pricing and bundling, there is a strategic way to do pricing, and I talk about that in the book. But I also am a big believer in the per user model, in that, especially if you have larger clients, the per user model, you basically price it based on the average user. But the bigger your clients are, the fewer people they have that are super users, right? A company with, let's say, 10 employees has got 2 or 3 super users. A company with 50 employees has got 5 or 6 super users. And so the rest of them all have one desktop. They can't have email on their phone. You don't support their home laptop. You don't support their iPad or their cell phone or anything. You support one device per person. And so the per user pricing is really beneficial when you get to those larger clients, because there's a cost per person. It makes sense. It's rational. The client buys into it. And then as they add employees, whether it's in 5 at a time or 1 at a time, you provide those services, and it costs you less and less per person as the client's size gets larger. So we talk a little bit about all of that in the book. So, and I know it's a never-ending story, because probably in the 15 years that I ran 2 managed service businesses, we revamped our whole pricing structure probably 5 times. The world keeps shifting. I was shocked to hear that Zyxel was around in 1989. Let me tell you, I was doing networking in 1989. It was not fun. There was nothing automatic about it, right? It was a major pain in the neck. And today you plug in a device and it just works, right? And so your business is constantly changing. Never expect that you will create a pricing plan and it'll be good for the next 10 years. You will be lucky if it's good for 5 years. So I hope that's helpful.
All right, we've got 2 hardware-based sort of questions here. Actually, let's skip those. Faraz has a follow-up that just came through. He says, but per user may have multiple devices, and how would you charge them?
So in a different book, Cloud Services in a Month, I specifically talk about that subject. So I believe in having what I call a 5-pack. So the 5-pack is up to 5 licenses for your antivirus, spam filtering, RMM, PSA, everything it takes to manage the client. And so it's a good sized bundle, and it's, there's some money involved in that. But basically, think about with Microsoft, you can install a license, and that one user can put it on their phone and their laptop and their iPad and their desktop, right? And so it works the same way with a 5-user license, that you basically are going to manage up to a certain number of devices per person. But now you're charging per employee or per email address, something like that. And so the bundle includes up to 5 users at this price. The beautiful thing about a 5-pack of licenses is that 4/5 of your clients will have unused licenses, right? Think about it this way. Like if a client has 37 employees, back in the old days, you would sell them an antivirus package. You would sell them 2 20-packs because it made sense and it was a good price and nobody batted an eye. Well, who gets the money for the 3 unused licenses? Symantec, right? Now, today, if you sell, let's say a 20-pack of licenses, if you sell them 2 20-packs of all of your services, you keep the money for those 3 unused licenses. But it also, again, it flattens the fee for the client because they can add a 38th employee. They could go down to 36. and their billing won't change, right? So they like that flat fee licensing. It's the way Netflix works. Nobody ever calls Netflix and says, hey, I only have one TV. I need some money back, right? They just don't do that. We are used to buying in bundles. Bundles provide a tremendous sense of value, and they're great for you. It's one of those things where you can flatten the client's billing, and that is a benefit to the client, and they actually enjoy the predictability of that. And people always say, well, Karl, my clients can count. They know that they don't have 40 employees. I have literally never, ever, ever had a client raise that question. I have only had technicians on webinars raise that question.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I actually have one particular case where somebody has, well, with, for example, Microsoft licensing, you're stuck into, well, typically you do a year because you get the cheaper bundled price.
Mm-hmm.
So this customer, let's say they remove 5 different users, they're still paying that same cost right now. They don't care. They don't say anything because they know they're already locked into it anyway, and they're just paying the same price.
Right. It's a beautiful thing. So I hope that was helpful.
Jim replies, Karl, I love Cascade cables.
Oh my gosh. People don't remember, and I won't be the old man who goes into long stories, but it really was not easy to be in this business 40 years ago.
Faraz just replied saying thank you for answering all of his questions, and he appreciated our effort. Anthony has another question here for you, Karl. I recently read an article that SMB MSPs are gradually being marginalized in a cloud-centric business world. Small businesses need less and less management with SaaS apps. What do you recommend as additional services to bolster the traditional endpoint management model of MSPs?
I have to say, and I'll let Brenton jump in here as well, the whole discussion about managing the client is about the relationship. It's not about the technology. If you go to an attorney and you say, okay, so we're going to put you onto this Microsoft licensing with Azure Active Directory, and we've got your storage over here, and we're using this for long-term backup, and we're using that for managing your devices. And there's a different vendor for antivirus, spam filtering, backup, cloud services, connectivity. The attorney's going to be like, oh my God, can you just take care of it? And I don't care. The attorney does not want to do tech support, or they would be in your business instead of their business. And that's true of people who own restaurants and, doctor's offices and every other client that you have. They don't want to do this. And we were literally having this discussion over at the National Society of IT Service Providers with regard to CISA. CISA thinks that they're going to put out a security alert, and every small business in America is going to read it. And we tried to point out to them, none of the small businesses in America are ever going to read it, because what they're going to do is they're going to hand it to their MSP and say, will you read this for me? And then do whatever it takes to make us safe and legal, right? You have to build the client relationship. And so I don't think MSPs are being marginalized. MSPs are choosing to marginalize themselves when they choose not to engage in a long-term relationship with their client. And in my opinion, the easiest way to do this is to have regular roadmap meetings with your client and talk to them like, oh, there's some discussion that we might have an economic downturn. Do you know what you're going to do? Have you thought about how you're going to maximize the use of the equipment you have? If you downsize your employees, we want to make sure that we put the newer machines on the desktops of the people who are staying. As you come out of the recession, we want to make sure you know whether you're going to buy new equipment or revamp that old stuff that's been sitting on a shelf for 2 years. On and on and on. Have that business relationship, have those ongoing discussions, and then the client won't fear that it costs money when you walk in the room. They will say, oh, here comes a business advisor who's going to help me run my business more appropriately by making good choices about technology. And so anyway, again,
yeah,
I would also
I would also agree with you, Karl. And I like we've gone into meetings with customers where they literally will tell us, we have no relation with keeping with this current MSP, so we will totally just change over to you. And I'm like, well, because we've already built that, we've been there, we've helped them, we've discussed relationship with them and built a relationship with them in regard to, let's say, the phone side, right? And so we were able to get into other things because they trust us and appreciate us. And I would also say that, like, I would say that everybody still in this world, there's still a lot of people that are not technology savvy, that don't want to deal with any issue and don't really want to call an 800 number and talk to a different person every time. That's probably the biggest difference between a small business MSP versus, let's say, using a cloud service and you're calling their 800 number and then you get a different person every time. Very rarely does it happen in a small business MSP. So like we're typically the same people that talk to them all the time. So we have that personal relationship with them. We know what's going on with them, and that's incredibly important. And again, I've always felt that technology is there to help and not hinder. And so anytime the technology in, let's say, one of the businesses that we're providing services for is hindering them or annoying them or something like that, we get on that. We don't want them to be hindered, because once technology is hindering them and causing headache and frustration, that's when they're going to start shopping. That's when they're going to start looking places anyway. So we want them to just stay with us and be happy with us. And as Karl said, keeping that relationship is also what's incredibly important.
And the other thing you have to remember, SaaS management is easy for you. It's not easy for somebody who couldn't care less about who hosts their DNS, even though that is critically important to their business. They literally couldn't care less about that, or who owns the domain, or how it's configured, or anything. The world, from their perspective, is getting far more complicated, not less complicated. And you just need to be there to hold their hand and maintain the relationship.
All right, I think we're good there. So Mark had just a comment on that. What Brenton said, when you call our office 8 to 5, Monday to Friday, the caller only has to dial 1 digit to speak to a person.
Huge.
Yeah, and I typically get pretty much the same texts when I call for support, and they're awesome and super helpful. And if they don't know the answer, they'll get the answer.
So David had some questions here, I think, on our hardware. Let's take a look here. First question was, will there be any release of 5 gig or 2.5 gig speed switches for home use, with all the ISPs offering these higher speeds? So we do have switches that do that. They are not Nebula managed. If you're familiar with Zyxel, for those that aren't familiar with Zyxel, our primary business is actually supplying large internet service providers. So we do have some switches that do that. Generally, they aren't managing them, though. Generally, they're using a gateway that's managed, and then for anything inside on the local network, they usually use an unmanaged switch. We also work with some fiber ISPs that are using some of our semi-managed switches. So we have the MG series. There's an MG 105 and an MG 108. Small desktop switches, unmanaged. All 5 or all 8 ports on those are going to be 2.5 gig. For those looking for faster than that, we have the XGS 1010-12, an XGS 1210-12, and an XGS 1250-12. All 3 of those have a mix of gigabit ports, multi-gig ports, and 10 gig ports. Just a reminder, if you have questions, send them in using the question and answer box. We're almost done here. I'm just saying that because I see a few hands raised, and we don't have a voice for you guys, so type them in. So hopefully that answers that question. As far as when something that would be Nebula managed, I mean, we've got them, but they're aimed more at the office type switches, so they're probably going to be out of the price range of for home use. But those would be the 1930 series. And the XGS 2220 series. Both of those offer multi-gig. David's asking here, when having multiple employees, it would be nice to be able to audit who logged into what Zyxel devices, but most only allow an admin account and setting up many local accounts. Is there any plans to set up Active Directory auth on the devices so you can more easily see who is in or who is on the devices? For local management, I don't think so, although it's not something I've been asked before, so I haven't looked into it. I will say on Nebula, I mean, if you're using Nebula to manage those devices, each one of your users is going to have an account, and you have the ability in Nebula to control what people have access to, and there's different levels there. So you can have an installer level whose only really ability is the ability to go in and scan devices and add them to a customer site. If you're providing guest access, we have the ability to set up a user so they can simply log in to create new guest access accounts if you want to control them that way. As far as the admins go, you have the ability to control what sites or what customers your admins have access to. You have the ability to set up view only versus the ability to edit things. And this would probably be more towards your question. This would probably be more of a ProPack feature there. We've got that audit log where anybody who makes a configuration change, it's going to get recorded in the cloud and stored there for you for a year. So you could use that audit log to see who's made any configuration changes to any devices. As far as if you're not using the cloud and you're just doing it standalone, I'm not familiar enough with it to know if there's something coming that way to add something more like that or not. I can tell you in general, I think the company's major push is moving more and more into cloud management as becoming the primary form of management. I know we're still lagging a little bit behind on some of the security features, but that's one of the areas where we're focused on moving to. Let's see here. Anthony sent in just thanking us for our answer and thanking us for our time. Anonymous attendee asks, when do you think we'll be catching up on supply of devices? It's been a struggle to get the more popular USG switches and APs over the last year. For the most part, we are caught up. The only AP I'm aware of that we're currently got some backlog on is the Wi-Fi 6, the WAX 620, and that's because we've been giving it away for free when you purchase certain switches, and that turned out to be a lot more popular than we'd planned on. So we've got a back order on the access points there. That should all be resolved next month, I think. On the security gateways, there's still a few of the models that I know we have some supply issues. We've just caught up, I think, on most of them, but there's one or two that I think we'll probably be caught up on by the end of June. So hopefully that answers that. I think on the switches, we're all caught up, but for the most part, we're mostly caught up. Most things, if we are stocked out, we will have more stock within the next 30 days or so. Although then again, we just did some massive price discounts through distribution about a month ago. So who knows what that's going to do to the demand for those products. But at least at the moment, most stuff is in stock or is just got a short lead time on it to get it here. And then David is asking, where can we purchase Zyxel network hardware? I'm assuming you're a VAR or an MSP or something along those lines, in which case I would suggest that you join our partner program. Our partner program is set up. It'll get you access to deal registration, priority access to network support, and based on your volume, it will get you access to automatic discounts when you're purchasing through distribution. Our products aimed at the SMB space here are sold through Synex, I guess TD Synex now, Wave, Ingram Micro, D&H, and Target. I think at the moment, Target's got the best access to supply. They stock more of our product than I think anybody else at the moment. If you are an end user looking to buy our stuff, if you go to our website, us.zyxel.com, we've got a list of some of our VAR partners up there that you can order from. We sell our products through Amazon as well. But if you're looking for help, configuring them and setting them up, take a look at some of our VAR MSPs. There's also a contact us there. You can contact us, tell us where you're located and what you're looking for, and we can help match you up with one of our local partners that are nearby. And then the last question here was from Jasmine asking how the raffle was done. So the raffle was handled by our marketing department. I believe the rule was you had to join the webinar and stick around for 20 minutes. So at some point there, they did the cutoff, gathered everybody's names, and drew them out of a virtual hat to see who was going to be the winner. I don't have the full exact details of how we did it, but that's what it was based on. So with that, guys, that's the end of the questions in the queue. I think now it's time to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for joining. As far as Zyxel is concerned, check us out on LinkedIn, check out our website, and reach out to us. As I mentioned, if you're a reseller, we do have our partner program, which will get you some automatic discounts applied through distribution. Karl, Brenton, I'm sure if you have any last words for everybody.
Just want to say thank you. It was great fun. And I always appreciate the questions, especially from people who are trying to improve their businesses, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. And I'm always learning and growing. So I think we all are.
Yep.
All right. Well, with that, then I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. Again, thank you, everybody, for turning out and sticking around with us for this. Thank you.
Thank you.